All right, here's my review for episode 3 of the Fallout show. I want to start by saying once again, screw Amazon, pirate. But I took a lot of notes this episode because I knew that things were about to get more and more dense as the series went on, so I wanted to take some notes. So I have some stuff here. Let's start at the very beginning of the episode. The Red Scare has been going on for like 100 years, and I thought that that was really funny about how the guy that's like, oh my god, he's such a great writer, and they're like, yeah, too bad he was a communist. It was really funny, because it makes you think about like they have been pushing this like scare because it like the 1960s did happen. Like everything from World War II happened, but the aesthetic just changed. Like was the same and just kept going forward. So I thought that was just really funny. That Cold War happened and then it just perpetually kept happening and kept moving forward. But then there was the Great War, obviously, and everything like that. I thought that was really funny. Because it really makes you think. They're like, well, he made a lot of stuff that you really liked, and then they just like wrote him off, and then he was like arrested. um, Howard's character, the ghoul, is really cool. I really like it so far, and I was like, I was kind of seeing where they were trying to go with it from the very first episode. And I want to mention, by the way, first episode is absolutely the beginning haunting. I love it so much. The is so cool. And then the inhaler thing, I'm guessing that's keep him from going feral. Uh, and then there's like the Vault Boy lore and so on. They're like, oh, it made him you're blue, right? And that was really sick to see. Really adding on to the Vault Boy lore, which I'll get to more. And honestly, it does make sense. It uh, a lot of people have been angry at retcons, like I mentioned before, and a lot of this just feels like it makes sense and added to everything, right? Uh, the Vault Dweller is so weird. She is so weird. Also, the Vault Dwellers themselves packing only like deviled eggs, or or they or she was packed only deviled eggs for a trek out into the wasteland and a bottle of water is really funny. Like, they're trained killers. They know how to fight. They know how to survive. They know like advanced sciences and everything like this. They are like basically robots that are a mockery of civilization, and they pack deviled eggs. It's literally like what a robot would do. They're like, okay, Americana, right? Americana, American culture, American, feelings and ideas, 1950s aesthetic. Pack deviled eggs, bottle of water, we're good to go. And then the way she like takes on, I love how more and more the Pit Boy, as the series and the franchise progresses, like the Pit Boy is just an iPhone. It is just like an Android. It is just like a phone, right? But like on your wrist, and it has all this shit going on, right? It can hack, because I remember whenever that was something that a lot of people mentioned whenever Fallout 4 first came out. Uh, this is such a weird memory. I just now remembered this as I'm speaking. Uh, but I remember people were mad at the fact that the Pit Boy could hack things. They're like, "Oh, that doesn't make sense. What is Bethesda doing? What? That doesn't make sense." But then here we see that it can hack and now it can track. And like, yeah, of course, Vault Tech would make the Pip-Boy do literally anything. Also, I want to mention episode 2, you saw multiple models of the Pip-Boy. I thought that was so cool because we haven't seen multiple, to my knowledge, from what I can remember. Um, the Pip-Boy that we see in the game is the only one we see. Like, yeah, there are multiple iterations, the 1000, 2000, 3000. But it's only per game and per entry that's the one at that time, right? Uh, and obviously it's really interesting because Pip-Boys don't really advance. Like, they were all made at the same time and pretty sure just given out to different vaults and so on. So, you got the Type 4000 that we see in Fallout 4, the one that also Lucy wears in this series, but then also having, I think the Type 3000, we see like the Fallout 3 model right there in, the window. So that's cool. Moving on. Yeah, she's so weird. Like sticking up the the tracker up her nose, up the guy's nose is so funny. Uh oh yeah, the 5 caps lady where they're just like no. And then Titus or Max has to go like on a little like sidetrack and have to get his tooth pulled out, which is so Fallout. Of course, there's going to be somebody that's collecting fucking teeth for caps. And also, I was like, oh, they're just going to do like the thing, like, oh, make them sidetrack, go on a little thing, take the power armor, kind of almost like Fallout 4 side quests or like main quest of like what happened like with the armor. Um, but no, he picks up a sword and a shield, as in a toilet seat and a wrench, and beats some ass. Uh, Crush was awesome. I thought that was really cool. Of the head exploding because I thought that that's what the guy was going to do initially on accident. He was going to fucking accidentally scalp him and rip his scalp off. But no. But I am glad to see the constant strength of the power armor. I've seen some comments talking about how the power armor feels nerfed. Actually, I don't think it's been nerfed at all. I just think that people really like misunderstand where the power in the power armor comes from. It's very protective. It is a walking tank and it can move fast when it picks up speed like a tank. But it isn't very agile. It's got huge pauldrons on the side. You can't like if you had those gone, yeah, you could box properly with a mutated bear, but there's only so much you can do. It's meant to be a mobile gunner unit. So, yeah, you're going to be pretty like not as mobile and as nimble. Usually whenever the Brotherhood, whenever we see them using things like using things like swords and so on, it's a lot of times for gameplay purposes, but also because those are earlier models of power armor and they're much slimmer compared to the T80. Then there's also things like just kind of moving it around because like earlier models, you see like in Fallout New Vegas how they do not look as big. The power armor does not look as big. It looks slim. It looks small, and they're the same height as you, right? And it just feels like armor. And then you can like swipe around like melee weapons and so on. But it doesn't really give the same presence as what it's said to be in like lore of how they're walking tanks, they're walking like do 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 do, so kind of making them a little bit bulkier and making them a little bit more heavy feeling makes sense, and I don't really see that as a nerf. I see that as just kind of world building that makes sense. Because I mean that's been kind of an idea from as early. I mean, yeah, Fallout 4 really changed power armor, but the power of it is still there. They're still punching people like fucking 10 feet away. They're throwing shit that's like all like across the field and so on. And I think that if you were to really bring that idea into fruition, and we've seen people literally bring power armor to life, even in cosplay and so on, that if it looks directly how it did in New Vegas and 3, yeah, it's still kind of hard to move. Um, but then if you go as forward as Fallout 4, it is then even harder to move and everything like that. So, and obviously this can be explained with multiple generations of power armor and everything like that. But blah blah blah. I am really interested in the relationship uh, of the new Squire and Titus. I really liked how that progressed throughout the episode. But Max is so Fallout of like just this guy that has like an ego, but like also just like has no real kind of, I don't know really how to put it. He's just so Fallout, right? Just being like, like pointing out this dude that's like taking absolute pride and his bully that's being fucking reprimanded. Control the waste is really interesting. That's obviously something that is constantly a factor in every Fallout entry. There is always something to control the waste and so on. There's always a MacGuffin. There's always something. Um, if it's something down to a water chip or a platinum chip or another chip, um, or like the Institute or uh like everything that has to do, there's always something, right? So there's always something going on. And yeah, or like the Eden, everything like that, control the wasteland is always something. And I'm really wondering what this show's thing is going to be. uh it was really funny seeing how crushed the gatekeeper was. He was so sad. he is he is just demoralized. And if Fallout really wanted to go really, really dark, I wouldn't be surprised if we just found out that the dude just killed himself. Which would have been funny. But also kept in line with the very dark humor of Fallout. But now in this episode, we find out what the project is for the vault, and it was what I said before. It's 3 vaults. It's 3 of them connected as one system, but each of them are independent kind of things all working together. It's very, very interesting and kind of makes you think about what Vault-Tec was really doing, because like we constantly are hearing these ideas of the individual and everything like that, the American ideal of everything, blah 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 blah. But then having a company like Vault-Tec then talk about like community and communal stuff and all this other stuff, um, despite fighting things like communism and everything. It's very interesting to read on and to really think about. And then also, uh, just like how vault dwellers themselves are kind of like acting, but I'll get to that later. Uh, Low enthusiasm is really funny because, yeah, you don't have to be enthusiastic at everything you do. Like, I love doing this. I love doing this. I love editing. I love making. I love being a creative. I love just creating stuff, and I love just doing this journey, right? But like my enthusiasm isn't like, sometimes I'm like, oh fuck, what a drag, dude. And they're focused more on the image than the person, right? They care more about like the idea than actual connection, right? Uh so so the brother just absolutely whacking it home. Um let's see. There is really, it's also really cool to see the prison of how like they reused the reading section, and now there's like a prison. I thought there was just going to be a prison there anyway, and I was like, oh well, recreate society, like, there's always something to put the misanthropes in or anything like that. Uh, it was really funny seeing them all in there just going, "Arr." And you can clearly tell that the girl that had the older woman that had like a sling on was either injured during the attack or like leaned forward and had her arm broke. Because there's the guy that like is reaching forward. The ghoul racism is obviously really funny with Titus and or Max and his squire. Is it Thaddeus? Something like that. One of the Isses, one of the pseudo kind of like Greek Latin names and everything like that. That was really cool to see, and I was kind of like expecting Titus just like to turn to the side and be like, "What are you talking about?" Because like wipe out ghouls and everything. Um, I really do think that like how Lucy is being treated throughout this episode really is going to grow her character, kind of going from this naive vault dweller to being a survivor of the wasteland. Um, she mentions the golden rule, treat others how you want to be treated, but that really doesn't work whenever you're talking to somebody who has this self hatred, this self loathing, and everything like that. And that's why I feel that the platinum rule is so much better. Treat others the way they want to be treated, not how you want to be treated. Um, let's see. Oh yeah, yeah. The golden rule of the wasteland is at every opportunity you will get sidetracked is so funny. It is that's such a funny line. Um, what does it say? Oh yeah, and then the like the scene of the squire and refilling the water. Another cool addition to the power armor of how like it feeds you, it drinks and everything like that. Which I'm pretty sure it might have already been that way. And then like he's like say something negative, and then we find out that that Titus, the knight that he was serving and then killed, was actually the one who caused the bullying to happen, and it was just kind of top down situation of just bullying happened, and then he caused the bullying to continue, and then the abuse and everything like that. Um, then there's the voting thing of like the announcement to the vault dwellers like maybe we should humanize these irradiated insane fucking raiders, right? And it just pans across how everyone is injured, and they're like, yeah, I'll teach them Kant and read them Shakespeare, and then I'm like, I don't want to be offensive, but maybe that's too advanced for them. It's like, oh my god, it's so funny. Like they're talking about rehab, and like all of them are injured, right? It, and then there's obviously then the tension of the water chip, and then everyone's like, oh, whoa, whoa. And now onto the second page of notes. And I really want to like take a second to mention about like the vault dwellers finally and how weird they are. Uh, like they're such a mockery of society. Like yeah, it's cool that they're communal and they're like a togetherness and they're always thinking about togetherness, but they're such a mockery of it in the way that they only care about image. They only care about the idea. They only care about like enthusiasm and so on, and not actually what is going on and the human connection that would be taking place in a communal effort like this. Um, Society isn't about being harmless or inoffensive, right? It isn't about purely trying to work people into the fold and everything like that just because it sounds good, just because it sounds nice or is palatable, right? Just because something will be pleasant for you doesn't mean that is the right way to go about it. especially in something with communal efforts. Like sometimes it is hard. Life is hard. Life, sucks. And obviously that's why we work to try and better it. We try and do the right thing to move it forward in a proper direction where we all work together. Um, but whenever you are so you're so focused on this picturesque idea, you lose the effort, right? You're lost in vanity. You're lost in just kind of uh the idea than actually doing, right? Um, they're like, yes, we are a community, we work together, but you're not actually working together. You're not actually a community. You're not actually doing anything together, right? You're just a mockery, right? You're just going through the motions because it sounds palatable, or you're only doing the bare minimum without, you're only talking the talk, right? You're not walking the walk. Um, and one of the biggest things about society is that you need to know when to match energy. Like, yes, it's about being tolerant, but it's also about having intolerance for the intolerant, such as raiders. Um, and knowing when to fight, knowing when to pick up your arms, and knowing when to use any means of power that you have to better, to fight, to bite back, right? Not just sit there and take it and be passive and be harmless. Pacifism isn't about being harmless. Pacifism is about knowing when to pick your battles. And then we cut back, obviously, with that tangent out of the way, to the gulper. The axolotl fish is really cool. I love the CGI, and it does not look bad at all. I actually really like how you see in the inside the fingers and everything like that, and that kind of relates back to how a lot of creatures in the wastelands are just humans that mutated really, really badly. Or then mixed with other creatures like, death claws and everything like that, are just lizards and everything like that. Then whenever they cause the gulper to throw up and then die, you see the head after that, but then you see like all the trash that's on the inside. I was like, man, one of those organs looks really fake. It just looks like kind of like a prop. And then I realized, oh, it's a pink flamingo. And I actually started laughing. That was really funny. And then the cheering, and then seeing the dog lick the head. Oh, it was so gross. And I was like, oh, I know that because of how slow the digestion is of the gulper that they mentioned in the episode, that it's going to be kind of rotted away. And it was gross, but it was so funny. And then we got back to Lucy and Howard walking in the wasteland, and oh my god, it must be so painful walking with only one boot and then having the other exposed to hot sand. I have walked on hot concrete for like 2 hours barefoot before. Uh, Long story, but it hurts. It really, really does hurt. And then when you start getting like having all that happen, you can start getting stuff like tendonitis happening in your foot. You can start having permanent damage to your feet because of that happening, and you don't have proper support. And it sucks. It blisters. It burns and everything like that. And you will be sore for like days after, even weeks maybe, especially because of how long she might be walking for. And then we see that he destroys um he talks about radiation. I like how it very clearly is tied into it. And we see the irradiated water. She ties that back to him as a ghoul, and he's like, yeah, something like that. And then they come across the Pit Boy sign or Vault Boy sign, and then we actually get the full lore of what was going on with him, the full story. And I think that's really cool. I thought it was really interesting to see how yeah, it was an actor who like was requested out of popularity, kind of like how We saw like a lot of Clint Eastwood stuff back in the 70s, 60s, and 80s. I think that's the right time period. That like a lot of actors were doing advertisements, and a lot of times it was done for like propaganda, and especially during the Red Scare, and seeing as how well America in this time period has been in it for a long time, they're just going to keep doing that. They're going to keep feeding this propaganda to as many as possible, and then using Vault-Tec. And I really do enjoy how the thumbs up was just kind of like an on the fly thing, uh, and that it reflects the actual real world lore of the Vault Boy, where initially it was just a thumbs up. It was just something that looked cool, and then people started making theories about it, and then I think it was my. It's been so long. That a lot of theories were like, oh, well, if it's about the mushroom cloud because he's like looking like that and everything, and then that the show kind of confirms that, where it's like, oh, point your thumb up in the mushroom cloud and everything like that. And I like how it comes back around to real world, almost metatextual things of where, yeah, it was just kind of an accident, and then the guy just thought it looked cool and people ran with it. And it's really interesting that he's used as advertisement for the vault suits and everything like that, and Vault-Tec, and used as a real person advertisement. While then there's also the picture version of him, and then they changed his look from the ad of him as a person into this blonde-haired character. That's really interesting and makes sense in this America because it's picturesque. It's the blonde-haired white guy, right? And putting him up on the billboard with the thumbs up and everything. And I'm sure that they'll talk about maybe in the future episodes. They're like, "Why'd you make me blonde?" and everything. If we ever get any more like that, it's really enjoyable. I really do enjoy it. And then we end on the thumbs up. Fantastic, fantastic. Every time I keep seeing that there is people talking about retcons, I just think for a moment about how and why it could fit into the Fallout lore as a whole. And I am just reminded that if you think for more than a few seconds, you can just come up with an explanation behind it. You don't have to take it at face value. That's the biggest thing with Rage Against the Show, is that people just take it at face value. Either A, don't watch the show, or just pass it off because, oh, woman, or oh, Bethesda, or oh, retcon, everything like that. And even if something is retconned, shit, if it's not explainable, if it makes you people keep crying that, oh, my favorite is retcon, it's dude, whatever. You're just going to keep crying about anything anyway. Keep going and playing Fallout. Keep being a fake fan or whatever the fuck. But yeah, I enjoy it. I still really do enjoy it so far. I can't wait to see episode 4 and how it continues, and to really see if anything really is changed or anything. The guy who wrote Fallout 3 and was one of the writers on Fallout 3 is on this show, so anything that seems to be changed is probably just to fit things in properly into the timeline, or to add lore. This show is just doing what Arcane did for League of Legends. It's just doing for Cyberpunk what Edgerunners did. It's not retconning. I didn't watch Edgerunners and go, well, Sandevastans aren't said to do that, or the game doesn't say that, right? Despite the fact that there were people that actually were mad that Sandevastan was doing that in the show. Or how Jinx wasn't just a manic pixie girl and actually started having character, or now you're seeing people editing Lucy to have a fucking mod in the show of having her have a fat ass and fixing her. Ugh, God, what a bunch of fucking porn addicts. That's coming from me. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Other than that, let me know your comments down below. Anyway, Click.